Would you please state your name?
Norman Scott.
And where do you live, Nor?
I live on 31 Snow Street in Hoosick Falls.
All right, would you tell us a little about before you went into the service? You lived in Hoosick Falls,
Right.
and tell us a little about before you went into the service.
Well, I graduated from Hoosick Falls School in 1941. Went to work for M.D. Kincaid and Sons, who at that time was in the plumbing and heating business. In September of 42, I enlisted in the Marines, went to Parris Island, South Carolina for boot camp. After that was a period of 8 weeks. After that, I went to Norfolk, Virginia, to sea school. After sea school, I was assigned to the USS Bellawood. It was an aircraft carrier, converted from a cruiser.
All right, and you went into you were a Marine assigned to the Navy.
A Marine assigned to a Navy ship.
I see. All right.
Yeah.
And what was your job on the ship?
I was a 20mm anti-aircraft gunner.
I see. All right, so tell us then, now you were in Norfolk, you were assigned to the Bellawood.
Right.
And then what happened?
On the Bellawood, at first we went for what they call a shakedown cruise to see if there's any bugs, being a brand new ship, work them out.
Was that the beginning of converted cruisers into, yeah, that was before the big aircraft carriers, we had time to build a lot of them.
Right, that was a converted cruiser into an aircraft carrier. Because at that time they figured they needed a lot more air power out in the Pacific Theater.
I see. All right, so you did the shakedown crew, and what happened next?
We came back, they worked what little bugs there were out of the ship, being a brand new ship, of course. Then we didn't know exactly where we were going to go. We headed out, went through the Panama Canal, and when we hit the Pacific Ocean, then we knew where we were going. We landed in Pearl Harbor, and from there we began our war cruises to the different islands in the Pacific.
All right. Could you tell us a little about it? Because I know I've read the book about the Bellawood, and the Bellawood saw a lot of action.
Quite a little.
And
yeah.
Would you tell us a little about where you went, and what did the ship do, and so forth?
The ship, we had 3 types of planes on it: fighter plane, an SBD, which was a dive bomber, and a TBF, which was a torpedo bomber. We hop-skipped to several islands through the Pacific, trying to soft up the Japanese enemy for future invasions by Marines.
All right, so the planes would take off and bomb and do their job on the islands just before the beachheads and the invasion started.
Kind of soften them up a little bit.
I see. And could you tell us a little, like if you, as you went to this island, would the Japanese be sending out planes to go after you all that stuff?
Oh, yes, yeah. They would attack our ships and our planes as well.
I see.
Yeah.
And the planes went out and did a lot of bombing, a lot of dive bombing, and so forth.
A lot of bombing runs, a lot of strafing runs.
And approximately how many islands did you have to soften up like that?
Oh,
You know, a guesstimate.
You name them out in the Pacific, and we usually hit them. I came home with 9 battle stars. That represented 9 major engagements. The last of them was in the Philippines, and we had 2 major engagements with the enemy fleet in the Philippine Sea.
So you had 9 major things.
9. Counting the Philippines would be 11.
11, I see. So you saw a lot of action. Now, what, can you give us some idea what happened? You know, I think I read your book, and I read through it, when you were being attacked by the suicide planes of Japan.
We were off the Philippines. One of their planes got through. We had hit it with our anti-aircraft fire, but we weren't able to blow him up. And he came down.
Well, hold it over this way. Yeah, there. Now I got it.
He came down, crashed into our flight deck. There was fire, shrapnel flying all over, and we were just about crippled at sea. at that time.
I see, when that plane hit. Where were you in relationship to that plane when it hit?
I was on my 20 millimeter, probably 45, 50 feet away from the point of impact.
At the point of impact. So
Right.
you were real close. That was real
Real
close.
close. Yeah.
We lost quite a few men from that.
I can't remember the exact amount, but there was 100, well over 100 killed. There was several missing who had either got thrown overboard or dove overboard because a lot of them were on fire, and innumerable wounded,
I see.
both from shrapnel and from burns.
All right. So when that plane hit, what happened? How did the men get the fire out and get all that? What happens on a plane when a suicide bomber, dive bomber hits it?
Each unit or individual is assigned a certain station to man hoses, rescue gear, and the like.
I see. And then you finally got it under control.
Finally, we got the main fire out, but of course there was after fire burning throughout the ship.
I see. And then what happened?
Then we, some destroyers escorted us back to the island of Ulithi, where they made some emergency repairs, and then we came on home to San Francisco.
I see.
That was the end of it for me.
I see. Because I read that Bellwood did go back out
Yes.
after that, and
Yeah.
there were in quite a few engagements after that.
Afterwards,
Yeah,
right.
but what happened to you? That's what we're interested in.
I came home on a much-deserved and really appreciative 30-day leave. After that, I was assigned to Marine headquarters at Washington, D.C.
And how long what was your job in Washington?
Well, in Washington, D.C., it was mostly guard duty, a period of rest, and we also had honor guard duty at Arlington National Cemetery for military funerals.
I see. All right, how long did you stay in Washington?
I was there from the early part of 1945 until I got discharged in October of 1945.
I see.
Probably 6 months.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So that pretty well sums up your service.
That's
So a lot of action. You luckily came home in one piece, and
One
you came
piece,
to
yeah.
San
No
Francisco,
wounds.
and then
Yeah.
you.
Very fortunate.
Well, good. So now you're back home,
Mm-hmm.
and what happened to you while you're back home?
Well, I went back to work for my old employer for a while. Then I went on the police force for a period of time, and I wound up with, it was originally Dodge Industries, by Lee Dodge in Music Falls, and it wound up to be Allied Signal, and it's still in operation in
I
Music
see.
Falls.
And is that where you finished up your work? You retired from that
That's
job?
where I finished up, right. Mhm.
All right. Now, you got married and had children, and
Oh, yes, yeah.
how many children did you have?
I had 3 children with my first wife, who died at the age of 38 years of age. I got remarried, and I have 1 child by my second marriage.
I see they live in town? or-
Yes, they do.
All
Oh,
four?
my children?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. My son, Joe, is a career counselor at Rutgers University in New Jersey. My daughter-in-law, whom you know, lives in Hoosick Falls and works at the travel agency. And my other 2 daughters, one is a nurse in Bennington, Vermont, and the other works in Cheshire, Massachusetts.
Oh, fine.
So they're all over the place.
Yeah, but they're close, but
Oh,
compared
yeah,
to a lot of
yeah,
other people,
yeah,
they're,
yeah, close.
Cheshire's not that far.
Close enough to visit.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. It's great
Mhm.
to hear. All right, now, would you like to say anything that we, people that haven't been in the, in the engagements you have about what you did, about the service, or things that you remember, stories, people you met, anything about the service that comes back to your mind as we sit here and talk?
Well, I know when I first went to boot camp in Paris Island, the first day I can remember saying to myself, what have you gotten yourself into? We were treated as just raw recruits we were told, you are not Marines. You have to earn the title of Marines. And we found out why.
You're the fourth Marine to tell me that.
Oh, yeah?
So it was pretty,
Yeah.
so, all right, so it was tough till you got used to it.
It was tough, but each day became easier and easier because you fell into a certain routine.
I see.
And after our 8 weeks of boot camp, we were given like dress uniforms, passed in review, and then we could call ourselves Marines.
I see. All right, is there any interesting things that happened? You bump into anybody in Washington, or because there was nobody from Hoosick Falls that served on the Bellawood with you?
No, and I don't remember running across anyone
Very-
stateside.
Yeah, very few people actually did. From
Yeah.
from what we've been doing here.
Right, yeah.
Because it was a big army, and it was.
Oh, yes.
Hoosick Falls, a little town.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about Hoosick Falls, or about anything else?
I was terribly glad to get back to Hoosick
Yeah.
Falls.
Yeah, it must be something to be on a boat. How long were you on that ship, on that boat?
20 months.
20
Yeah,
months.
just shy of 2 years.
So you were on the sea for 20 months, actually, with a few port stops. Is that what happens?
I think we came back to Hawaii twice.
In the 22 months?
During that 20 months.
And the rest of the time, you're right at sea?
We were at sea. That
I mean,
was our home.
Yeah. I was reading that it gets pretty monotonous on a ship when you're not in battle and you're not getting ready for it.
Oh,
In
yeah.
between, it can
Yeah.
get pretty monotonous.
Yeah. But we were kept busy doing house cleaning. On the flight deck, we'd go up there and march and have our drills and stuff like that. And that was about it.
Yeah, as far as the flyers on the boat, on the ship,
Yeah.
the guys that went out,
Right.
they lost quite a few men in that
Oh,
business, right?
A lot of them. A lot of them. Yeah.
That was one dangerous job, being a pilot coming off an aircraft carrier.
Yeah, when they returned from a raid or a battle, they landed on the flight deck, which to them, from the air, was about the size of a postage stamp.
I see.
And all across the flight deck, there was cables. And they had what they call a tail hook on their plane. As they came in and hit the flight deck, the tail hook caught in that cable. Sometimes the cable, or the hook, would bounce. And then we had what we call a crash barrier, several cables. And sometimes they'd even crash through that. We had one lieutenant commander who missed the cables, went right through the crash barrier, over the side, and that was the last we ever seen of him.
I see. That was tricky flying.
Oh, yes.
To land on those.
Very difficult.
And your ship was a lot smaller than the
Than a
new
regular-
aircraft carriers, because it was a
Absolutely.
converted one.
Converted. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, great. Is there anything else you'd like to say that about being in the service that young people don't understand that you'd like to, have on tape?
No, except that it's quite an experience, and truthfully, I've got to say that it was a good experience, all in all. Bad sometimes, good sometimes, but something that you really appreciated after it was all over.
Yeah. How old were you when you were in the service? In that
I was
area?
19.
So between 19 and 22, you saw all this action and
Right.
saw all this happen.
Mhm. Yeah.
Young boy.
Much younger than I am today.
Yeah, right. Well, I thank you very much for coming, and
Okay,
we
you're
thank you
more than
very
welcome,
much.
Phil.